Help Jews in Poverty at helpjewsnow.org. Your $25 gift today will help provide a life-saving food box to Jews in need. Be a blessing right now. Visit helpjewsnow.org. That's helpjewsnow.org.
This is a CBC podcast.
Hi, I'm Nariman Ansari, and I live in Richmond Hill, Ontario. It is exciting to see that Justin Trudeau is still going to be the face of Canada internationally. I feel like that is important.
We'll be hearing from voters across the country this morning. Nariman Ansari, who we just heard from, immigrated to Canada from Pakistan 9 years ago.
It feels like the Liberals and NDP are more open to diversity. And Liberals have shown in their previous governments that it matters. Women and minorities have been part of their cabinets. And I'm also glad, actually, that it's kind of a mixed bag. Conservatives have enough of a space there to speak up as well and push. Everybody checks on each other, which is, I think, actually a good thing. You know, with the way how polarized the world is right now, it feels like that's okay. It kind of gives us some faith in the system.
One of the people who will have to keep building people's faith in that system is Mark Holland, Liberal incumbent in the riding of Ajax in Ontario, was re-elected last night, joins us now. Mark Holland, good morning.
Good morning, Matt. How are you?
Well, congratulations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You were elected. Your party stays in power, but as we've been saying, Parliament is pretty close to what it looked like before the election. Was this election worth it?
Well, every election is worth it. Every election is an opportunity for Canadians to have a say on the kind of country they want. And, the reality is this is going to be my fifth minority government. And everyone is, have been quite short in the past. My first one was actually only 18 months. But I think this one was particularly important. Look, we've all gone through something exceptionally difficult with the pandemic. This is really the largest crisis the country has faced in one generation, maybe more than that. And there was an opportunity for Canadians to have a say on how they wanted to move forward as a country. I think that's exceptionally important. COVID-19 didn't exist as an issue when we go back to 2019. It was something that wasn't on any of our minds. So I think it was exceptionally important to connect with folks and make sure that this is where they want to go, that they want to keep moving forward.
Your party was looking for a majority. You were returned with a minority, what some people have said in some ways is a lukewarm endorsement for the party itself. And the message, and we heard this from outgoing MP Catherine McKenna, seems to be one of humility. How will your government move forward in that frame of mind and govern with a sense of humility, given what the country has said back to you?
Yeah, absolutely. It is absolutely essential that we reach across the aisle, that we continue working with other parties, that we find ways to compromise. And I hope that everybody comes in that spirit. I think the message from Canadians was clear that towards the end, the brinksmanship, these things that were happening in Parliament to try to push a political advantage is not what Canadians want. They want us to continue moving forward with the pandemic, getting this done, moving forward to get us back to a sense of normalcy and to move forward on the big issues of the day. So, in the last term as whip, we spent a lot of time trying to work, I think, together. I think it worked exceptionally well through the beginning of the pandemic. And then in the last while, it became a lot of fishing expeditions, a lot of time spent grinding partisan axes. And I don't think that's what folks want to see. So I think all of us have to put that to the side and really focus here on moving forward.
How are you going to represent this entire country? I mean, when you take a look at the map, it's blue and orange in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, many parts of British Columbia as well. You take a look at what's not there, and there's not a lot of red further west. So how will this government truly represent this country?
Well, we've elected MPs in all parts of the country, and more than that, that we have a caucus and a team that is 100% dedicated to putting the needs of Canadians first in everything that we do, and to be closely connected to what the country needs and is feeling and thinking.
Can you do that given the regional breakdowns and concerns that people, again, particularly in the West and in the prairies, may feel shut out because they don't see themselves represented in the governing party?
Sure, but I think the key thing when you govern is to demonstrate not only in your words but in your actions the understanding of the issues that are important in different regions of the country. You have to govern for all Canadians, including the seats that you don't represent. And I feel that responsibility, in my riding to represent the views of constituents that I may not even necessarily agree with. That the objective of governing is representation and to make sure that the whole country feels represented. That doesn't mean you always agree, but you have to ensure that the viewpoints and the perspectives of others are reflected in your thinking, and that you make an earnest attempt towards compromise and towards bringing folks together. And I think the best of the Liberal Party has been when we've been able to do that, when we've been able to find that middle ground, to pull people together, to find the ways to bring the country more united and more together than it had been in the past. And that's our objective. Look, these are very divisive times in many parts of the world. And I think Canadians rightfully have a lot of pride that our differences are there for sure, but they're not as big and they're not as extreme as they are in other places. And it's our job to lessen those differences and find more ways to come together. And that means, perhaps everybody's a little bit disappointed, but at the end we wind up with policies in the country that is more united and is appropriately reflective of the population that it represents.
Long night for you, I'm sure. I appreciate you taking time to speak with us this morning, Mark Holland. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Much appreciated.
Mark Holland, re-elected for the Liberals in Ajax, Ontario.
Sean Clemens, Small Pack PEI. I think Mr. O'Toole did a pretty good job. Hopefully they stay in the centre. Hopefully he stays in. Hard to beat when somebody says $10 a day daycare. I voted for the Liberals back when he promised veterans to bring back the old pension system, but there was a lot of tricky words. It turned out to be very misleading. Mr. O'Toole being a veteran, I decided to vote for him because of his integrity. I truly feel that Mr. O'Toole was making promises that he planned on keeping. I find Mr. O'Toole tried to bring his party to the middle. If they keep on this path, they'll definitely be back in power.
Conservatives may not be back in power nationally, but in Alberta, Conservatives once again took most of the seats, including Stephanie Kusie, who was re-elected last night in Calgary, Midnapore. Stephanie Kusie, good morning to you.
Good morning, Matt. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks. It's always a great feeling to win, so I appreciate it.
Sean Clemens just made an interesting few points there. One is that he hopes your party will stay in the centre. How important was that move to the centre for you?
Yeah, well, this was something I certainly anticipated that Aaron would do over the last year, working towards the election. And I think that he had a fantastic election. I think he exceeded expectations with excellent policy announcements every single day. He won the popular vote. He maintained more or less the seat count. And I really think that Canadians liked what they saw of Aaron O'Toole as they got to know him better and better. But sort of contrary to our last speaker, I think that this was an election run by Justin Trudeau, called by Justin Trudeau for the objective of the vanity project of winning a majority. He was not successful, and he did it, contrary to what Mr. Holland just said, using fear and division. And the Liberals just kept throwing thing after thing until something stuck. And it just tells me that, yes, I believe Mr. O'Toole was moving in the right direction towards the centre. I even heard that in my own riding. I was actually very shocked to hear from on the doorsteps some constituents say, you know what, I voted Liberal previously, but Mr. O'Toole has made me consider voting Conservative for the first time, and that's something I wouldn't have expected here in Calgary, Midnapore. So I think that he just needs more time for Canadians to get to know him, but we're definitely moving in the right direction.
You say he exceeded expectations. Why was Erin O'Toole unable to defeat Justin Trudeau, do you think?
Yeah, as I said, I think Canadians need more time to get to know him better. And as well, I feel that, this was as the PEI resident indicated, this was an election where Justin Trudeau would literally say anything to get it elected, including the $10 daycare. It just falls in line with all of the other promises.
People made similar accusations of Erin O'Toole, that his positions on many issues changed not even over the course of the campaign, but over the course of weeks in the campaign.
Yeah, and he never had the opportunity to, or not as of yet, to have a platform to which he can live up to for Canadians, whereas Justin Trudeau has proven time and time again, be it through climate promises, be it through democratic reform processes, that he is not going to do what he says he is going to do. Where, I believe that Erin is really moving the party in the direction that it needs to go, and that for the most part, I believe he really has been consistent in terms of his policy compared to a year ago. So I feel Erin is moving in the right direction. Canadians just need more time to get to know Mr. O'Toole, and Justin Trudeau attempted to get his majority to achieve his vanity project, and he wasn't successful.
The campaign's over. We just have a minute or so left. But the message that seems to be coming from voters is figure out some way to work together. This is a minority parliament, and it doesn't seem like any leader came out of this election covered in glory. So is there room for you and your party to work with the Liberals?
Well, I think this is where Canadians are at today. It's $600 million later. We have almost the exact same results as we did 2 years ago, and I think in a lot of ways Canada is more divided and at a bit of a stalemate, and it's absolutely as a result of the Prime Minister and his divisive politics over the last 6 years, which culminated in this selfish election that he called, where he failed in achieving a majority. So I think there's a lot of reflection to be done by both Canadians in terms of what the future holds, and as well parliamentarians as we go back to the House of Commons, because certainly what Justin Trudeau has created and built in the last 6 years is not an environment of unity or positivity for Canada, and we in the House of Commons are the ones who are left to deal with that.
Stephanie Kusi, we'll leave it there. It's good to speak with you this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. Have a great day.
Take care. You, Conservative candidate Stephanie Kusi, re-elected in the riding of Calgary-Midnapore.
My name is Boston Lafferty. I am a student at the University of Victoria. I'm Métis, and I voted for the NDP. When the federal parties are dealing with Indigenous issues, it doesn't feel genuine. It doesn't feel surprising to me that after Justin Trudeau called the election is when Shoal Lake 40 got clean drinking water. I think it's all sort of a show in order to kind of be able to pat themselves on the back and say, look at us and look at how good we've done with reconciliation. Even the party that I voted for, I feel like all parties have that same attitude. When they go back, they need to actually listen to Indigenous people and put their focus on making the change rather than making it seem like they're making a change.
As expected, the Conservatives held on to their stronghold in Alberta, but the NDP did pick up at least one more seat in the province, and that will give Heather McPherson some company. She was re-elected for the NDP in Edmonton Strathcona. She's on the line now. Heather McPherson, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You just heard that comment there. I mean, cynicism is a strong word, but there are a lot of people who wonder about promises made and whether about promises actually being delivered on. When you hear that, given the fact that this is a minority parliament, again, reflecting the government and the result of 2019, what goes through your mind as you head back to Ottawa?
Yeah, it makes me upset. It bothers me. It bothers me that Canadians think that their politicians are not going to do what they say. that there is this feeling in Canada that politicians are in it for themselves, not for Canadians. I mean, that's not why I'm in it. I'm in it to fight for Albertans. I'm in it to fight for my constituents. But it does make me take pause and feel sad that we have a political system in this country where young people and folks across the country aren't confident that their government is in it for their best interests.
NDP tried to make the case that it was the party to tackle that, and yet didn't significantly change its seat count. Why do you think that your party has not hit a ceiling, but wasn't able to capitalize on that?
Well, we have such a great leader, and we saw throughout the campaign that Canadians, saw the positivity and the energy and the optimism that Jagmeet brought to this race, and in Alberta, I mean, we can say we doubled our seats, and I know that went from 1 to 2, but it's still very, very exciting. And we did see the seat number or the vote numbers go up, and so that is exciting. And I think that frankly, a lot of this comes down to scare tactics that we heard throughout the campaign. That if you don't, the scary version of if you don't vote for one guy, you'll get the other guy. I'm a New Democrat, so of course I always feel like they're not all that different, those two guys, but that's a whole nother conversation, I guess, for an election that inevitably will be around the corner, I suspect. But I also think, this was a scary election for a lot of folks, and I'll be interested to see what the voter turnout looked like. I'll be interested in seeing, whether or not students got out to vote, considering we didn't have polls on campuses, and some of those questions will be interesting in the days ahead.
What do you think the message was? I mean, when you were knocking on doors, what did voters tell you about the message they wanted to send to Ottawa?
Well, the overarching message I think that all parliamentarians should take away from this is that Canadians want us to work together. Canadians want us to get back to work and start doing what needs to be done to recover from COVID-19. In Alberta, our economy wasn't looking great before the pandemic. It certainly hasn't helped to be in a lockdown for 19 months. In Alberta, of course, our healthcare system is a top priority. I heard a lot on the doorsteps about how Jason Kenney has failed Albertans and how, our free fall of our healthcare system is terrifying. So that's one of my big priorities as I head back to Ottawa, is to make sure that our ICUs don't collapse, make sure that Albertans are protected.
We just have a few seconds left. Everybody's talking about working together. Is it more difficult than it seems? And is something like that in a polarized environment, is that truly possible?
Absolutely, it's truly possible. I mean, we were doing it before. We did it during the pandemic. The role of parliamentarians is to work together. I believe that this parliament was working. I believe that there was no reason for this election, and I think Canadians said that loud and clearly that there wasn't, because they said back almost the exact same thing to Ottawa. So yeah, absolutely, it's possible. For a long time I was the only. Oh, it feels so good to say that. I was the only New Democrat in Alberta, so of course I have to be pretty good at working with other folks. So I think absolutely Canadians expect us to go back to Ottawa, get back to work together. The NDP have an important role to make sure that this government follows through on all the promises they made. By the end, we were even hearing electoral reform was back on the table from Mr. Trudeau. So we'll just keep pushing to make sure that childcare gets fixed, make sure our healthcare system is fixed, make sure the wealthy are paying their fair share. That's our job, and we'll do it with whoever's willing to work with us.
Heather McPherson, good to speak with you. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
And you, Heather McPherson, re-elected for the NDP in Edmonton, Strathcona.
Right now, our lives are on our phones. And with our phones full of live-streamed exercise classes, midday work calls, and nightly family video calls, there's no room for fraud calls. Thankfully, AT&T makes customer security a priority, helping block those pesky calls. It's not complicated. AT&T Active Armor, 24/7 proactive network security and fraud call blocking to help stop threats at no extra charge. Compatible device/service required. Visit AT&T.com/activearmor for details.
Help Jews in Poverty at helpjewsnow.org. Your $25 gift today will help provide a life-saving food box to Jews in need. Be a blessing right now. Visit helpjewsnow.org. That's helpjewsnow.org.
The Green Party lost a seat nationally. Now there will be 2 MPs. Mike Morris is one of them, newly elected for the riding of Kitchener Centre in Ontario. Mike Morris, good morning to you.
Good morning, Matt.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Big night last night. How are you feeling the morning after?
Well, I only slept for about 2 hours or so. So a mix of exhausted and also just really humbled to have the opportunity to be a voice for my community.
What was the pitch you made at the door?
Well, if I'm honest with you, Matt, I spent a whole lot more time listening than speaking, because I think that's what democracy is supposed to be about. It's actually listening to the concerns of my neighbors for, dating back to, I ran in 2019 and came in second then. And again, with hundreds of friends, went back to nearly every single door in the riding, street after street, to say, what's important to you? And I found there's just so much common ground and so many people in my community who actually agree with exactly what you finished saying. They don't care what party someone is with. They just want to see their representatives finding a way to figure it out and work together when it comes to the shared challenges from, the unaffordability of housing to gaps in mental health supports, the climate crisis, of course. These are the kinds of things I heard time and time again, along with this just disinterest in the deep partisanship and a real thirst for folks to find a way to just put that all aside and work together to get things done.
You picked up your seat, but this was not a good night, I think it's fair to say, for the Green Party. The leader came in fourth. Despite the fact that there's a climate emergency, this party failed to increase its support. What went wrong for the Green Party?
Well, I'll leave that for folks like yourself, Matt, to analyze over the days and weeks to come.
Well, I ask you questions. I mean, you would know because you're in the party and now you have a seat. So what do you think? I mean, give us a sense as to where did things go sideways?
Well, again, for my part, across my community here in Kitchener Centre, we just saw a huge boost. The number of people who appreciate, for me, again, one of the main reasons why I'm running with the Greens and why I'm proud to now be elected as a Green is this focus on working together and turning down the politics. Some 99.5% of the votes in the House of Commons are all along party lines. And so I think the word I got back from folks in my community was a real excitement for focus on the priorities as opposed to the partisanship. And I heard it from some of the other guests. I heard it from Mark, I believe, earlier as well, this sense of this is an opportunity to just turn that partisanship down, instead focus on what we all have in common and, on these shared priorities across the country. And I look at someone like Elizabeth as an example of someone who has been reelected so many times and received accolades from other parliamentarians for that focus. Same as, Mike Schreiner in Guelph, just down Highway 7 from me here, as someone else that, is just wanting to stay positive, to be respectful of their colleagues, and knowing that by being more respectful, it's going to give us a better chance of actually making progress on the things that our neighbors care about most.
Does that need to be extended to your own party? I mean, your leadership, your leader was essentially under fire consistently, even before the campaign started. Does part of you wonder what could have been without that internal turmoil? Oh,
absolutely. It was a distraction and a disappointment that I've spoken about quite a bit over the last number of months that, it wasn't helpful. And I'm encouraged, at least, there's some new folks on the federal council, a more diverse group that I think is more ready to center anti-racism in their efforts. And, that group was, their role started in the middle of August before the election was called. And so I am optimistic that we'll see more from, whether it's the Greens and then others across the country as well, on just, turning down again the politics and any divisiveness and focusing on what I'm hearing from my neighbors most, which is a real interest in saying, the challenges that I heard about in 2019 only got worse through the pandemic. We can talk about long-term care, right, house prices going up 35%. These are the things that I want to be a voice for my neighbors on, to really advocate respectfully to make progress on those.
Just a few seconds left. Do you believe that Annamie Paul should stick around as the leader of your party?
Yeah, again, I really appreciate NME's support for us here. She was here, online, in person. She came out to Kitchener Centre to support our efforts here. And so I just appreciate how much she did to really serve candidates and campaigns like ours here to support us. I appreciate her leadership.
Should she stay as leader?
I'm happy to have her as the leader of the party. I'll leave her and others and commentators and all the rest to continue that kind of conversation. For my part, my opinion, I think she's a wonderful leader, and again, I really appreciated her support of us over the past number of months.
Congratulations again, and it's great to talk to you, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Mike
Take
Morris,
care.
newly elected Member of Parliament for the Green Party in Kitchener, Ontario.
For more CBC podcasts, go to cbc.ca/podcasts.